call this meeting to order. I'd like to recognize the public, our BCTV cameraman Ian Keel, and I'm sorry, could you two introduce yourselves?
Yeah, Scott Brzozowski.
And I'm Katie Bachler.
Welcome.
Thanks.
We've got the rules of procedure on the table up here, but we're going to pass those by at the moment, and we'll get to those shortly. Do we have any new additions to the agenda?
We need to decide if we're going to have an executive session for a personnel matter tonight.
Okay.
And I think we should take comments on it. I think you should take comments.
Yes. Any comments on the proposed executive session?
So I have shared with the select board that I think it's better to do this, have a discussion when everybody's present, not trying to do it over the telephone, but that is my personal opinion.
Anyone else?
As I emailed Sheila, I'm content to, if the rest of the select board is, to move the executive session to another time when I'm there at the next meeting.
I guess my opinion, and I'm probably the problem child, is that I think that we should act swiftly and timely on the issue. So that's another 2 weeks at least.
Is that what, that's what I was gonna ask, how long is
It
it?
would have to be.
Well, the
till next-
26th.
Yeah,
26th.
the next select
So
board.
it'd have to be at the next
Yeah.
select board meeting.
And I'm, either way, as Richard has said.
No, I mean, I share Gabby's thought process, but I also share yours. I think that conversation might be a better one to have in person. This, I think, is a little overdue already.
Yeah.
So in one hand, making it more overdue doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
help, but, you know, I'm not sure.
Well, I have a suggestion, which is that we could meet in executive session, and if it seems that it's okay to do it with the burden of the telephone, then we'll complete what we want to do, and if it's awkward, we can
Continue next
Continue.
week. To be continued.
I like that.
I like that too, Veranda.
Excellent.
Okay, so
That's a plan.
Well, it's
So we
my
will go
one-eyed perspective. It's like
So
Cyclops.
we're going to add an executive session
Yes.
at the end of the meeting.
Yep.
All right. Any changes to the agenda order? Okay, not hearing any. We'll move on. So new business. The first order of new business is the selection of a chair and vice chair for the upcoming year for the select board. Would anyone like to?
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we continue with Sheila as our chair, if she's willing.
I'm willing.
And
Anyone else?
are we going to, I'd like to amend the motion to have a slate of Sheila and Gabby.
That's even better.
Is there a second for that? You'll have to second it. Oh,
Richard.
Richard second, okay. Is there any comment?
All
I
right.
didn't know whether we had to do one at a time.
So
I like
Brandon
the
moved to
slip
appoint
better.
Sheila as chair and Gabby as vice chair. And Richard seconded. We'll do a roll call vote.
Starting with Richard.
Starting with Richard. How do you vote?
Aye.
Gabby,
Aye.
Veranda,
Aye,
Gordon,
Aye.
and Sheila.
Aye.
okay. Chop chop.
Aye, aye, aye.
Yay, yay, yay. So,
So I will turn this over to Sheila now.
thank you, sir. The first item of new business was to re-adopt the rules of, the select board rules of procedure. They are on our website.
Right.
We have them at the meeting every night, and as I said, I found it enlightening to read them. Reread them the other day in preparation for a prior meeting. So, did anybody want to make any additions, changes? Feel like they were satisfactory? Do I hear a motion to re-adopt the rules of procedure?
Motion to re-adopt. Richard.
Richard, you can
He can make the motion, I'll second.
move, and Gordon will second. Okay. Roll call vote again. Richard,
Aye.
Gabby,
Aye.
Veranda,
Aye.
Gordon,
Aye.
Sheila, aye. The next item on the agenda is the discussion of select board goals for the year, and I actually thought it might be useful to combine that with reviewing the select board role in the 2015-2020 town plan.
Right.
The goals are on the spreadsheet that everybody gets access to every week. And I didn't make any changes in last year's goals. I thought we might want to review them, talk about whether we accomplished them, whether we want them to be on the same, we want to continue with them this year, or whether we want to add any new ones. And I thought it would be helpful to do that within the context of the, excuse me, select board role per the town plan, which is something that we all was agreed on in the 2015 select board. So, any comments?
Is it appropriate to suggest, I will suggest, if you can tell me whether it's appropriate after this, that one of the goals should be to have a procedures manual regarding proposals to go out and grants to be received for the town, the process of review for proposals to go forward.
I think that's good. And actually, I would probably even make it broader because, I love my statutes and stuff. So what I did was I don't know if you guys got this book, this Vermont League of Cities and Towns, the handbook for Vermont
Yes,
Select
I have
Boards.
it at home.
Yeah, it's really good, and it was actually good to refresh and sort of say, okay, select boards actually only have the powers given to them by the legislature, which are pretty actually narrow. It's highway, finance, and then anything that nobody else gets, essentially.
Gabby, can I ask something?
Yeah.
So in terms of our responsibility to advance or implement the town plan, is that not in the book?
And see, the town plan, I find it a little confusing because the town plan is really aspirational, and you don't have to do anything in the town plan. Right? It all says we should do all these things, but it's all completely aspirational. We don't have to do a thing for the town plan. So it's this odd document in my mind. And I really struggle with it because it's something that the town did, and it's a visioning plan, really, right? But like when we talked about with the grant, well, things changed since 2015, so we can sort of ignore maybe parts of it that maybe are outdated. So I always struggle with that document because it really doesn't have any technical power over us, put it that way. So what I did was actually look at what are we actually supposed to be doing? Because I hadn't thought about that in a while. And it's set forth, it lists all these duties. Most of them have to do with make sure the highways are constructed and maintained, purchase tools for the highways to be constructed and maintained, proper management and administration. All these are highway things. Speed of motor vehicles. Keep accurate accounts showing in detail all monies received by the town, including from whom, when received, etc. So looking at finances. And then it's sort of a catch-all. Anything, all the other affairs of the town that aren't committed to law to somebody else. So it's a sort of funny thing, right?
That are not committed by law to another
To
body.
the care of any particular officer.
What is the, is there a preface to that
I can read the
explains
whole thing.
anything about what it means?
No.
No?
No, but I'll read you,
Okay.
What the VLCT did was sort of list some of the select board's general responsibilities, right? Enact ordinances. Warn all town meetings and specifies business to be conducted at the meetings, including proposing an annual budget. Responsible for hiring, directing, and firing almost all town employees. Authorizing all town expenditures by signing orders for the treasurer to draw down town funds. Supervise the expenditure of highway funds and keeping the highways in good repair. Animal control. Appointing minor town offices. Insurance. Other things. Being on the board of civil authority. So they list a number of things. But the enumerated duties are actually highway and finance. And then there's this catch-all that includes all these other things. So what I sort of looked at was, well, to me, these are the basic fundamental duties that statute and the town citizens are expecting us to do, and where are we with that? Because in my way of thinking, if we don't have a really good fundamental base, how can we then start doing visioning processes and actually then implementing those vision processes, right? That was just my thought process. So based on those, I thought, what should we really be focusing on? So I have all these lists. Because I'm sort of like a procedures and project manager. So I thought with, financial, we should really always be get a set of financial statements that before every meeting, make sure we look at them. We should get, I think, a sort of a update on all of our reserve funds and amounts, so we can have an understanding of where we are there. I thought we should have a grant status table that sort of listed the name of the grant, the total amount of the grant, the town amount or match, the amount drawn down to date, the status of any reimbursement, and then sort of the relevant terms. So you could always just have a picture of where we are at any time. And again, this all sort of ties into financing. I thought we were really behind on employee reviews since, for example, I've never given the road crew a review in my past 3 years.
Which review?
Road crew member a review in my past 3 years.
We're supposed to review.
Well, actually, okay, so
I mean, whatever.
Yeah, okay.
But
let's not address each thing.
But so I thought we should be a better employer. I thought with it, one of the things that we didn't do was sort of get the town report out to everyone this year before pre-town meeting, which I thought was sort of key, especially if we want to focus on engagement, and I can understand how that could be frustrating to a citizen. So I thought we should actually have a schedule put before us by October 1st by the select board, so we can all look at it and say, hey, this makes sense, and this will enable us to do our job, which is supposed to be to warn, we did properly warn town meeting, but I feel like we need to, in order to engage the citizens, we should actually provide them with information in a timely fashion, because maybe not everyone has internet,
Right. No,
or maybe they don't have the capacity, maybe they have a disability and can't read on the internet, so maybe, whatever. And I also thought we really need to get all of our contracts, certificates of insurance, everything together for our insurance purposes, because one of the things we are supposed to do, according to the book, is, get our insurance. So I sort of had a laundry list based upon what I would call sort of basic fundamentals based on the statutes in VLCT.
Which I don't disagree with. I mean, we've talked about this.
So,
I
I think they're all, the one, before I take exception or comment on anything individually, the one thing that I wanted to say is, that's a great list. It is reflected in the projects and priorities and in the new tickler spreadsheet that is being built up since the last couple of weeks. So I think that, I don't know whether they are select board goals or select board goals for the town administrator role.
I think there's select board goals that we should be doing. I mean, that the statute says we should be doing this. So I feel pretty
We need the financial information provided by.
Right, we should be doing all this.
Yeah, but we're not the people to create these.
We need to either do it or get it done. I don't know how else to say it.
It is the town administrator's responsibility to provide us with the materials for the meetings.
Right, but it's really our responsibility, right? We need to take ownership and say, we need to get this done. And that's all I'm saying, is put systems in place to get get this done, because it really is our responsibility.
Yeah, so I think with the work that we've done with Cynthia and the information that I've sent out, and that we're contemplating finishing either with Cynthia on an ongoing basis or perhaps with Katie, we'll address many of we're headed in that direction, and we are probably one email away from a confirmation of all of our reserve funds. We have a grants status spreadsheet, so that is accessible to anybody, and we will, once we get this final figure for the general reserve fund, we will have the reserve. Peter has a very detailed list of how to update the reserve, the funds and balance sheet, so that we know what the reserve funds, what the funds are, what the balances are, where we stand in terms of spending, and when we finish the source and use of funds, we'll have a better idea of where we will be going forward on each of those things over 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, and I hope a 10-year time frame. That's later on in the meeting, though.
But I just was trying to, maybe the better way to say it then is I was just, because I think Richard's right, that we need a system in place so that we don't get caught in the same problem over and over again,
Right.
which is what we're sort of tending to do. And so maybe it's put fundamental systems in place and implement those systems.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
totally agree.
And how to do that? Where, as I understand it, I mean, this is not one of my areas of expertise. In fact, it's one of my areas of whatever the opposite of expertise is. So I'll trust that we understand how to do that. And when we're ready for questions about how the other responsibilities that we have taken on and continue to have fit into this very sort of tight construction that the Vermont League of Cities and Towns has put out about select board responsibilities, then I'll ask those questions.
And that's not I mean, I just picked and chose, and the VLCT picked and sort of gave general responsibility. I just want to make that clear because the statutes, it really just all comes from the legislature and statutes. So it's not an exhaustive list by any means. I think we can regulate circuses, actually. It turns out.
So, and I went through this last week because I was looking, somebody had said to me, well, it is the select board's responsibility to protect the resources, the lives, the property, and the resources of the town and the finances of the town. And I'm like, I don't think I've read that. I don't know that that's really our, unless we look at it in terms of a financial commitment. But I don't know that it is our responsibility to protect the lives of people in this town. You know, I couldn't find it in there, you know, so. I think we sort of assume that we might best be operating in that direction, but we might be inferring too much. I did have a sentence in the select board role in the town plan overview that says the select board is responsible for answering the question, where are we going? And for balancing competing priorities such as economic development and environmental protection. And these obligations are reflected in the below excerpts from the town plan. The excerpts that refer to the role the select board plays. And I wrote this document with Michelle back in 2015. Michelle Frizzy, chair of the planning commission. I don't remember where that sentence comes from. So I don't know if we would even agree that we are responsible for answering the question, where are we going? Maybe, unless in balancing the checkbook and looking to make sure we don't create debt for the town or something like that, that is in way, where are we going? So we can pull it back to the finances. But I didn't know what people thought of that, because it's a broader interpretation.
Can I just add one more before I forget? Only because it came up at town meeting, and I do think it's important to recognize the public comments at town meeting, which was transparency really came up. And I thought that was something that we should pull out because it was a thoughtful comment at town meeting.
Yeah. I'm always trying to figure out how to be more transparent. You know, we're working on that with the communications. I don't know. It's frustrating sometimes to have people say, we didn't know, you know, just because there's.
Or if there's suggestions on how to be more transparent.
Yeah.
I'm all open to it. I feel that we try to be as transparent. We're certainly not being non-transparent intentionally. So I think if we can do that through increased communication, I think it's a major step in the right direction, but I'm not sure that's going to resolve
And it might not, but
everything. But no, I agree with you.
I mean, I think it might be an ongoing goal.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I think it's actually in our goals. To continue to be active, open, and transparent. That is goal. It's in our last year's goals, and probably from our prior year's goals. Prior year's goal. The thing about the town plan, I'm struggling with the idea of it's only aspirational. Either it is something that the town commits to in terms of policy, vision, policy, and actions that we've all signed on to, not just the select board, but it went before the town as well. And or we don't. I mean, I don't think we can put it out there and then just walk away from it and say it doesn't matter. It reflects a great deal of work on the part of many people. Public hearings, input by more people than actually are on the planning commission, and it's put out there as this is what we are all working for and towards, and this is what we believe, and these are our policies. So if we say that the planning commission and the select board will work with local, state, and federal experts to understand demographic, economic, and environmental patterns and trends that will shape our future and impact the town's infrastructure, including the impact of climate change, and then if climate change becomes such a big discussion at town meeting, which it did, I think we have an obligation to do what we can to make sure that work is, or those directives are being acted on in some way.
I mean, I struggle with the town plan and what it actually means, but I will tell you that, and I know because Dick Clark asked this question over and over and over again, because he said it shall, the select board shall do this, and it was said time and time again that the select board doesn't have to do any of this. If you want me to see clarification from WRC, I'm happy to do that, but it's something I struggle with because it is a document. I mean, the way I view it in my head, or at least work through it logically, is that it's a carrot.
Richard, hold on 1 second, please. Let Gabby finish her
Gabby's
sentence.
finishing her sentence.
Sorry, is that it? I was thinking, I was too slow. Is that it's a carrot, not a stick. So if we want to do something, it gives us support, but it's not a stick that says you have to do any of this. So that's sort of how I rationalize it. And we rationalized it when we were talking about that grant, and we said, okay, well, it's this particular development that we were looking towards in Algiers Village wasn't in our town plan, but that's okay because it was old and something came up. So I think it's a flexible thing, and I think it needs to be flexible, especially since now they're going to be updated every 8 years.
8 years?
I think so.
Katie said. Sorry, Richard, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I think this is a very significant issue for the select board to understand and come to some agreement on. And I think that in what you're saying, Gabby, the town has a limited, by statute, has limited responsibilities. Most of them seem to me to be about roads and money. But what is there to, the town has to do that, so that's what the town has to do.
Right.
The select board has to do rather. But what about what the select board can do, or what we might do? Are you saying that we're restricted to what the VLCT says that the statute, their interpretation of the statute, or which is to me very short-sighted in regard to the development of towns in the state of Vermont, that the statute doesn't talk about vision, doesn't talk about town planning, doesn't talk about making an economically comfortable situation for town residents. There's a lot left out in the statutes, and who is going to do that work that needs to be done in order to have towns grow and thrive?
Yeah, no, so what I was saying, and I just want to clarify that, make sure I was clear, is that's our minimal. To me, that's our basic stuff that we should be doing. We could be doing community development. We could be doing all sorts of stuff that's permissible, but I would just wanted to point out, like, our lowest bottom minimal level.
Mm-hmm. So the minimum...
And the expectation that we are doing those things.
Yeah, that we need to make sure we're doing those
At a
things.
minimum.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So that's what you're underlining, is that before we are visioning and planning for the community, or helping the community to plan, that we're doing what we have to do by statute.
Right.
Correct.
Well, you might
That's your
think...
point.
Right, exactly.
You might think of these areas that Gabby was describing as the minimum daily requirement, but not the whole meal.
Right. And we all know how important nutrition is.
Well, I mean, otherwise, here we are with navigating the Wyndham Solid Waste District, or here we are with the town office, with some of our conversations about priorities. But dealing with this town office is not roads And to a certain extent, it derives from having sound finances, but it's not about finances. And if not us, then who?
Right.
So maybe we can go back to the last year's proposed goals and look at them briefly, one by one, and then see whether we want to keep them or not. And I would suggest that we would like to say proposed goals and actions this year. The first one is annual review of ordinances and policies. Sorry?
Can I was going to say, but don't we first have to inventory whether we're doing what we're supposed to be doing according to statute? Wouldn't that come first?
I was just starting where we were last year, and then I'm trying to type in some new ones as we go along. So, yes, we can put execute financial obligations responsibly. I think, and Gabby will give us her her little list.
It's a list of Post-its, Richard. It's nothing special.
And do what we need to do by statute, including finances and highway. So that would be a new thing. Are you moving this or am I?
I'm not in that document.
Okay. Annual review of ordinances and policies to ensure they are current, relevant, and up to date is something we have to do on an annual basis. So that stays, I think. Initiate the capital program, I think, would change to implement the capital improvement plan, because when we get that far in the next couple of weeks.
I think it should be create and implement, because I don't think we actually have one. I would say create and implement.
The other one was financially assess component organizations of the town, library, Guilford Volunteer Fire Department, and Algiers Fire District. That was completed last year. I mean, we need to keep, I don't think we need to focus on that. A town plan was the goal for the select board and the town and as a whole was that Guilford must strive to become a place to which our children, along with other younger individuals and families, will want to and be able to live and build a sustainable economic future through initiatives that extend beyond opportunities afforded in the region, let alone in Guilford. And we've actually participated in the economic leadership meetings that seminars have been going on quarterly. So I think in a way that we're kind of working on that. I mean, I think we can be more deliberate about it, but we've been involved in it. I don't know if anybody has anything they want to say about that.
I think, I'm not sure whether it would be a select board initiative or a kind of invitation to convene the young people who live in Guilford and find out what's working for them and what they need that might make it better.
And we are actually, the Planning Commission wants to convene meetings, conversations together with the Select Board, perhaps related to communications and housing and economy in the next year, because that will inform the next cycle of the town plan, among other things, and it will get people engaged. So I think that we could amend this to say working with the PC, Planning Commission, and others in town to have these conversations.
No, and I mean, we have liaisons, people who have particular interest in each one of these areas. And, that's something that I certainly would be happy to help convene and invigorate.
Another goal that we had last year was be aware of the needs of Guilford elders vis-a-vis the town plan. And maybe we have conversations together with the Planning Commission and others, housing, economy, elders, and communications. Maybe that's 4 conversations that take place over time in the next year. Not necessarily convened by the select board, but together with others.
Well, I could certainly see, I don't have the correct proper language for it, but I could really see, reaching out to different groups and asking them to share their energy and their constituencies to create these very important conversations, and that select board members who have time and interest could certainly be bringing our gravitas, and our commitment to these conversations. I really feel as if we have these good organizations in town, and they're showing us that there are real dovetails, real connections between, the Rec Commission and the Conservation Commission, and of course everybody is going to the cemetery, so that's sorry, I've been anesthetized today, so you'll have to excuse me.
You're doing fine.
No, I think that's a great idea. I mean, it's always, to me, I always think that being collaborative and being inclusive is really an important goal, and to not reinvent the wheel. I mean, there's organizations that have this information and work in it daily. So, why should we be doing economic, we don't have any expertise in it, right? I mean, we need to learn about it. So I think that, convening a group of people that might be here, Guilford related, but also perhaps on a broader geographic area.
Well, I feel as if, I don't know how to word it for the select board, but whether it would be to generate, to propose, to encourage these community conversations, bringing together residents and people with strengths. I wouldn't even say experts, but people with strengths in these fields to try to unify and support our residents in dealing with these core issues.
I just got all that. Been a great residents.
And I would be happy to, let's say work with Peter on, how to make it more realistic than I would come up with.
So we have basically combined in a way three of last year's goals: collaboration among various Guilford nonprofits, be aware of Guilford needs vis-a-vis elders, and then the goal around economy, housing, and communication. So I think we've got some good ideas for figuring out how to turn that into an aspirational goal for the select board and for the town.
Yeah, and bringing together youth and age, looking for these connections.
And I think it's just starting conversations.
Yeah.
The next goal was the select board should continue to be active, open, and transparent, which we talked about. The final one that we had last year was figure out Wyndham Solid Waste Management District options. Yay for us, we did. A new one that I threw on here as a result of, I think, Gabby and Richard's discussions, were we were to decide on and create subcommittees for finance, buildings, and grounds, that we would finance and buildings and grounds, so that we weren't all doing the same work. So I don't know if that is something that people would still like to do.
What's a subcommittee?
So you and I are on the communications committee. Talk much?
A little tongue-tied, but we can communicate, right?
We sort of made the subcommittee out of Richard, Gabby, and Peter for capital needs.
Okay.
Source and use of funds. So we haven't really had a finance subcommittee. I've sort of been trying to do all the things that Gabby's being watchful over.
No, my question was, is a subcommittee is not just select board members, it would be select board members plus, okay.
No, it would only be select board members.
And I guess my idea of doing this was just to, divide the work and divide the knowledge.
Okay,
so that you weren't having, if there was turnover, people leaving with
okay.
a bunch of historic knowledge.
No, I get that.
And I guess I would probably do more subcommittees, like HR, because that's been something we dealt with a lot this year. For example, that would be like HR and hiring or something. You know, I just had these
Okay,
making them
so,
up.
but I think maybe what we should do is look at them in terms of when terms expire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good point, so that we're not just volunteering special interest, but, you know, who's going to be here and when the terms. Oy vey. The others are things that we talked about. Do what we need to do by statute, financial stuff, and create and implement capital improvement plan. So I think these need to be tidied up and maybe presented in a cleaner format for next meeting.
Could we prioritize them too?
And that would be helpful.
You mean
Can't do
prioritize
everything.
the list of subcommittees?
No, the list of goals. that we
Goals.
just-
Oh, okay.
Bye,
Thank you for coming.
Thanks so much. We learned that. I'm really excited about the town goals. I want to participate.
Okay,
Thanks so much.
thank you.
Do you wish me to put any action step in there?
You and I, perhaps with Randall, will reword,
Wordsmith.
come up with
prioritize.
a goals and action slate for us to talk about next
Okay.
week.
Thank you.
And I do think people should maybe spend a little bit of time reviewing the select board roles in this maybe we should do this first and then look at the select board.
You mean,
as a
I'm going to
2000
review that book.
This is actually really good, and it's
Yeah.
actually really.
I have it right on my shelf.
It's like layperson friendly.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
I,
remember,
gravitate toward the statutes. You don't have to.
Oh, I'm sorry. There are two things I wanted. So, Gabby, so the new highway department employees get performance reviews, as does Jeremiah and Peter. So new people who came in after we adopted the personnel policy get reviews on the preliminary performance review and then the 90-day performance review, and then after that. I think if we were to give Danny or Alan or Dickie performance reviews, they might walk. I mean, we could ask, but
I think it's a good thing to do as an employer, not make it like a scary thing, but
yeah.
I mean, yeah, like give them good feedback too.
Right.
Make them, because that's what I envision they'd get.
And I think it's a good. Certainly Danny, because to me Danny reports to the select board. To me, there's a fine line, and maybe a liaison between the select board and Dan would give his people their reviews with him, supporting them. But
Yeah.
I do feel strongly that Dan should be the first. He should own giving his employees performance reviews with support from the select board.
No, I think that's right, and I think that's how we've done it with the highway crew in
Yeah.
the past. But I think they should all get like, "Yay, we back you."
Yeah,
You know,
no,
like-
absolutely. It shouldn't be a bad thing. It should be a positive thing.
I feel like they do get a performance review of sorts annually at the town
town
meeting.
Yes.
If they're there, or if they're not out plowing.
Yeah, exactly. And what was the other thing?
But I will say, to the point that getting performance reviews done in a timely, concise manner is the critical mass, and that takes both parties. It takes the person who's giving the review and also the person who's getting the review to get information across, the tail. And to me, that's what sticks us in the mud is when those timelines start getting decayed.
And I would say it might just go
Hard.
back to Richard's comment. I mean, and to put systems in place.
Right,
Like this is when you're getting it.
right.
I mean,
You
I
have
do
so many
mine.
days to
You
respond.
do it within a week, and
boom.
then
Right.
and then you'll get it on within 2 weeks.
Right. And
Give
that's
us
the way most
deadlines too.
companies do it.
Right.
Exactly.
So, am I correct in saying that we were going to deal with subcommittees, or we're going to have a slate of something for the next select board meeting?
Yeah, I think we need to
Okay.
put some thought into this and to put in some careful planning.
So the action step that I noted was that Sheila, Brandon, and Peter will work on clarifying the discussed select board goals to present to the entire select board at a later meeting. Or at the
Good.
next meeting, however you want it.
Works.
And Gabby's, I want to make sure that her post-its get you know, I mean,
And
it's
a
also,
mower.
Official.
well, it's also perspectives, you know, I
Right,
feel
right.
as if,
It's
Excuse me.
important.
you know, there's all that poetry and prose and just trying to bring them into focus so that we can really be on track. I mean, we have to be a little bit inspiring, but we also have to have our policies and procedures right, and that's inspiring in a different way.
Are we agreed that the goals should be put into priority order?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, moving on. Thank you, everybody. Select newspaper of record.
Now, my
Hearing
only,
recommendations.
well, based on what happened at least once this year when we weren't able to warrant something because we had an issue with the deadline of receiving it, I think we should change our newspaper of record to the Reformer only for that reason.
I would second that.
I agree. I think we agreed last year that we would try it, that we had good reasons for selecting the commons and some hesitations, and our good reasons continued to be good reasons, but our hesitations continued to be stronger, you know, turned out to be stronger. So I would, do we have a motion? In
I will make a motion that we change our newspaper of record to the Reformer.
Second,
Thank you, Richard. Richard,
aye.
Gabby,
Aye.
Miranda,
Aye.
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 I should say Gordon.
Gordon, Miranda, Sheila. Okay, thank you. Annual select board appointments. Does somebody want to read the slate of?
Where is it?
It's
Do I-
right in front of your
Under,
computer.
it's,
Oh, here it is. You
Oh,
can't-
no wonder
Ian?
he was just trying to
She
help
put
me
that
because
there's
I've
a
got my
prop.
floppy laptop. Okay.
you don't want to read this
You
with
can't.
one eye.
You can't.
No, it's good. I'm not gonna read it, somebody else will.
I'll read it. So, I mean, I guess the proposed slate of appointments is for road commissioner, Dan Zambruski, delinquent tax collector, Penny Marine, constable, Jacob Boyd, emergency management director, interim, Sheila Morse, dog officer, Jacob Boyd, health officer, Richard Davis, fence viewers, Dan Zambruski and Dan Ingold, Conservation Commission members, Bevan Quinn, Marley Rabinowitz, Rory Lincoln, Planning Commission members, Harry Evans, Chuck Clark, Recreation Commission members, Taj Kier, Lisa Ford, WRC, yes, me, and Peter. That's what's on my list.
Okay, I have 2 amendments to make to this list.
Yes, and there's.
Wait, I'm not
Yeah.
done
Oh,
yet,
I'm
Brenda, sorry. Town Pound, Marianne Lawrence. Floodplain Administrator, Steve Lemke. Green Update Coordinator, Ellie Mahonen. Tree Warden, Dan Zambruski. WSWMD, is it Director or?
I don't know.
Rep. Rep, I thought.
Yeah.
Cheryl Franklin.
Oh. I'm trying to think if they're called directors. Anyway, okay.
Revolving Loan Fund, Herb Meyer. And we had 4 vacancies, specifically the alternate dog officer, the deputy health officer, energy coordinator, and Bullock Education Scholarship Committee.
And also, what was missing from this is that the Cemetery Commission has Jerry Baker, Jerry with a G, and he was re-upped for his term.
So add him.
Yeah, please.
Can I make a comment? This is Ian Keel, VCTV cameraman. I think Cheryl Franklin serves as a director as your representative.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's what I was.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Ian.
So you read the slate. Did you move the slate?
No, I just read it, and I'll move it.
Okay.
Second,
Okay, more discussion?
Yes, discussion.
No.
I would like to, I'm pretty sure that Chuck Clark did not get an email because he doesn't have an internet, or he doesn't usually get things by email. So I would like to strike Chuck's name from this until we have a phone call with him. from this.
Oh, from the planning
From
commission?
the planning commission. I
Okay.
don't know that he is willing to be confirmed, assuming he is, but I would like to strike it until we know that he's actually heard from the town or from Michelle. Did you check this with Michelle?
I did not check with Michelle.
Okay.
I did have an email address from him, but I did not get
Yeah.
a response.
Yeah, I don't.
And so can I ask, is there a vacancy on the planning commission? Or this indicates that?
These terms are up.
Oh, I
um,
see.
And Harry does read his email and Chuck does not. So
Okay.
for the time being, I think until we either discuss things with Chuck or with and Michelle, we should not make that second appointment.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, I think we had agreed that Peter would not serve as Wyndham Regional Commissioner, at least in the meantime, and that you were going to check with
I reached out to the planning commission to see, because I thought that made sense.
Conservation Commission.
Planning.
Oh, planning?
Yeah, because it's actually, I think it would be really good experience for somebody on the planning commission. I mean, it's a regional planning.
Okay, I will, I'm
I
going
reached
to,
out to Thayer.
That's
and
right,
she said
that's
she
right.
would broach the planning commission.
okay, so that would probably not happen until the 19th, which is when they next meet. And so, other than that, I have no amendments to this list.
So I'll withdraw my motion and I'll move the slate with Sheila's amendments. Withdrawing Chuck Clark for planning commission and Peter for WRC. And adding Jerry Baker for cemetery.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Miranda, thank you. Any more discussion? All in favor, Richard?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
Sheila? Aye. Thank you. So we have a couple of follow-on steps to do. Peter, you are on for the PACIF grant for the road crew training.
Yes, so, believe it was last week, I was having a conversation with Lisa, and she noted that she had, in her other job, that she had recently given first aid and CPR training to 3 different towns in central Windham County, and the question just occurred to her, has the Guilford road crew ever had first aid and CPR training? And was talking to me about it. I was unaware of it, and we spoke with Penny about it. And then Dan came in the office, and
Peter,
Sorry.
can you speak into the microphone?
I'm sorry, Richard. And then Dan came into the office, and Lisa was spoke with him, and through a conversation with him, thought it, in short, was a really good idea to have the road crew do a first aid and CPR. Lisa said that she would be willing to do it, but via Rescue Inc. However, if the select board wanted it to be done by someone else, she understood. Earlier on in February, we had been notified about the annual PACIF grants that are available twice a year. And after the conversation with them, it occurred to me to look into it, and based off of the PACIF grant rules and guidelines, this would fit as something that we could apply for funding for, and wanted to present that as an option to the select board to enable the road crew to have this,
Great
I think,
idea.
needed training. Part of the discussion was that came up was noted that there are several areas within town that the road crew does not have cell phone service when they're
Right.
and God forbid if there ever was some form of accident, they would, if they were working in pairs, they would at least have the skills to be able to
Right.
care for their coworker until somebody could get help. So I
No, I
wanted
think
to present
regardless.
to the select board that we would apply for an upcoming PACIF grant to get them this training. And Lisa had the idea of possibly coordinating with Vernon and Halifax on this and get training for all 3 road crews, so we can do like a Southern Vermont or Southern Windham County training,
Nice.
and which would also, if we went in on the grant together, that would also increase our ability of getting it.
Good.
So I wanted to see what the select board thought of that as an
It's a
idea.
great
I
idea.
think,
Yeah, I think that's truly visionary.
I think that's great, and I would actually open it up to anyone, town staff. I mean, when I was a lawyer, we all used to do it, because if someone's in the building.
Sure.
I think that's a great idea.
Is
Thank
there
you.
a question, is there a maximum number of people who can be served in one workshop?
Lisa said that the workshop that she had just done, I believe, was 22 people.
Oh, okay.
And she said that's probably the max you want to
Yeah.
do. She said 15 is ideal, is what she said, but she can do up to the low 20s if needed.
Could you gauge interest? Sorry, Richard, go ahead.
I think it's a great idea, and I think it's something that would be very useful. I wonder who would take responsibility and the time to write the grant proposal.
I'm just gonna say, I'm looking at Peter.
Honestly, what about Peter with your sort of review and oversight?
That's fine.
I think that'd be awesome.
Peter have the time. Does Peter have time in his schedule to do this proposal?
I believe so. I believe that Sheila and I could discuss when to fit it in and within the upcoming deadline.
Which is?
The
May.
the first deadline is April 30th, and then there's a second one is August 31st. So they always have 2 rounds every year. The initial thought was if me working with Sheila, if it seemed possible and realistic to get this done right now, that the summertime would be the best time to try and fit this in the schedule for the road crew, because they have more flexibility during the summer. But
That means the April 30th deadline.
that would
Yep.
be correct.
You'll be back, Richard.
Yes.
So,
I was gonna just ask, in reading through that, do you think any of the speed carts could be looked at for something like that too? I know Dan was looking at, other
Oh,
ways.
speed,
Oh, the-
traffic calming
yes.
The
speed carts.
radar speed feedback signs.
Because I didn't see where it didn't say it, but some of the other things that have been granted before
Yep.
have to do with
Great idea.
highway and
Mhm.
safety.
I can
and
certainly
So,
contact
in-
PACIF to see if that's.
Or in talking to Dan, if he is still interested in possibly doing, but I wondered if that couldn't be added. I don't know whether you have to do these things singularly.
It would seem like
You would,
they,
yeah, okay.
they're
It's-
not part of the same thing.
No.
Okay.
I mean, this
And we're
doesn't
only
seem like,
allowed-
Oh, no, they're not part of the same thing. I wondered when
Yeah.
you submitted for the grant application, if you only had the ability to
My
do.
understanding is for one item or one training or
Gotcha.
workshop.
Fair enough.
You can have multiple people related to that, or multiple, like if we wanted 2 or 3 or 4 radar speed feedback signs, we could do that. But those in the
Would be
first aid
separate.
are 2 separate
Fair enough.
things.
No, just run with this.
So that could be something we could, if this is the priority as determined by the select
Maybe in
board.
August.
Well, we can only
Deadline.
receive one of these per year,
I
so we'd
gotcha.
have to wait till next year if we receive this one.
Perfect.
so it's saving lives or saving lives?
Saving lives.
What are we gonna do? Speed or
No,
CPR?
I like Lisa's
Yeah.
thought process. I think this is great.
So this
Training.
just needs to be added to the grant worksheet.
Yep,
and-
so I will coordinate with Sheila and Richard about fitting it in the schedule and writing the grant application.
Thank you.
And please thank Lisa.
Yes.
I will.
Veranda, VLCT listening session.
okay, well, one of the many emails that came
Do have
across
the,
from VLCT,
There's a,
oh yeah, well, I have it on my laptop here, is invites local, VLCT Board of Directors invites local officials and staff members of municipalities to join them at a listening session. So this is the crux. These are opportunities to brainstorm with your colleagues and VLCT staff about the future of local government. What will you need in the next 2, 5, or 10 years? And how can VLCT help you and all municipalities, all Vermont municipalities to succeed? And, then it goes on about the challenges that are coming. And I thought that this might be an opportunity for those of us who are interested to hear how other municipalities are dealing with some of the same things that we deal with, and also if we have feedback for VLCT, that this would be an opportunity to offer it. And so the one that would be in our area is May 2nd, which is a Wednesday at 6 p.m. And so I would be interested in doing that, but I wondered whether anybody else on the select board thought that it would have value.
Yes, and I have it on my calendar.
Oh, okay,
So I
so,
think it's going to be a very interesting thing to participate in, much like the SEVIDS and BDCC workshops.
Ian Keel, BCTV camera. What was the location?
It's
At
the municipal
Brattleboro.
building,
Oh,
Brattleboro,
Oh, okay.
What was the date again?
May 2nd, Wednesday.
Second.
6 p.m.
Okay, and so, let's see, do we have to register for that?
Yes, there's an RSVP there.
Okay, so I can
On-
do
on-
that,
yes.
we don't have to do it.
And there's no
through-
cost. It's
Oh,
just,
okay.
just they want to show if they want to know who's
Okay.
interested in the.
It's in, a link to the RSVP is in the email.
Okay,
Thank you. So I wanted just to have a conversation, a conversation about our source and use of funds. And as I shared with the select board members, we are nearing the point where we have to present, examine, and make a decision about the proposed town office renovations. And that I had said my goal is to present an understandable package at our meeting on the March of the 26th. Peter reminded me that I had originally thought it would be best to do that on April 9th, but I think we should still shoot for the 26th, that we would I don't know if anybody else has been having the problems that I've been having in understanding the construction budgets, the guaranteed maximum price, the alternates for this and this, and how different costs, different investments, say for example in insulation, what impact choosing insulation option A would have on siding option C, for example. And where are there costs that are basic no matter what, and are they also included in some of the alternate costs? So as I looked at those alternates and as I looked at the cost spreadsheets, I just asked Peter to work with the spreadsheet from GPI and make a different format so that it's going to be understandable to me. I don't know if everybody else is really clear on this, but I feel like
I'm
we
not clear.
do
on
not have a good handle on what's proposed and what the potential, what the costs are and what we can do without, and if we can phase things in year 1 and year 2, and if we can have the highway department do the grading or something like that. So I just wanted a much clearer description and idea of costs that we can then hand over to Gabby, Richard, and Peter, who are looking at the source of funds for not only town office renovations, but the capital improvement, to create a capital improvement plan and looking at the highway equipment. And I understand you might also be working with Danny on bridges. Is that?
Well, what I thought we were doing, I thought our deliverable was to come up with, and I forget because they have different things, that's why I tabbed it, so I used the right words. A capital program for budgeting, which to me is anything capital, which would be most of the building improvements that was set forth, and that's pretty clear in our CNA. Highway equipment. I assume bridges are capital, otherwise I'm not sure where else they come in. And then culverts greater than 6 feet, because those are pricey items. So that's what, I thought we were doing all of our capital expenditures. I was excluding like paving, I'll be honest.
Right,
I was excluding
yeah.
like paving and resurfacing and those type of things, but anything that we were going to have to plan for, essentially, it's capital budget. So those are the things that I thought we were doing. So I've been working with Danny. We've gone over the equipment. We started on bridges, and then we're going to finish up bridges and culverts. And then what I was going to do, in my mind at least, so tell me if this is what you want now, is to do a Excel spreadsheet and do each building, and then highway equipment, bridges, culverts as a different tab, and then have a summary sheet on the front that says year X, year Y, and then you could see what your totals are. So you have an expense
So,
capital budget.
And all the buildings would be included in that.
Yeah, I do building by building too,
Yeah.
because then at least you could pick and you
Right.
can at least
Right,
see
and
what you're doing,
prioritize
and it would be based on the
yearly.
capital needs plans
Right.
and my discussions with Danny.
Right, that we received.
And we said there's no capital equipment for the office.
right.
So
No capital
So actually,
equipment
Gabby,
for the office.
you're right, because I just looked up the capital program and budget policy that we have. For purposes of the capital improvement program plan and budget, a capital expenditure is defined as any expenditure for land improvements, buildings costing more than $25,000, building improvement or vehicles costing more than $15,000, equipment or machinery costing more than $5,000, and any expenditure for infrastructure. So thank you for remembering that. E.g. roads, bridges, water, and wastewater distribution and collection system costing more than $25,000. So we do have the Bridges Fund, which I have not named heretofore. I've named the three major reserve funds: the Reserve Fund, the Capital Fund, and the Highway Surplus Fund, and the Act 64 Fund, and
Yeah,
the
that's what I
Bridges
have.
Fund. So we're talking about 5 funds.
yeah, we have Act 64, Highway, Capital, our reserve fund, the Bridge Fund, and the Green River Cover Bridge
Yeah,
Fund.
the Green River covered
But
bridges.
that's clearly just for the Green River Covered
Yes.
Bridge in 20 years. I mean,
Yeah,
that we
2020.
can include the Green River Covered Bridge if we want to do like a 20-year plan. But that's its own special reserve thing.
So you will be, I sort of thought of keeping the bridges separate, but I think it's
It could be on a separate tab, and then what you'll do is you could just pull it out.
to bring it in. Yes, no, excellent. So thank you.
So that's the table of contents of the capital improvement plan.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
Because we can't approve a town office renovation construction budget without the overview of all of the other responsibilities and commitments and weighing whether they are responsibilities and commitments. So, as I said, I think we're one email away from the reserve fund. I think we are, all of the others are confirmed. We're a couple of days away, work days away maybe from the town office renovation, like being able to come up with something clear for the select board and the town to consider. And I would say to
Well
the
done.
public, stay tuned for the 26th or April 9th, because when we talk about all of these things, it will be in the greater picture context. And so I think we'll just make a special effort to put out notices to invite people to both meetings, just to make sure that people feel they are as involved and have as much a voice as possible.
I had a couple questions on a bunch of different topics. The first is, do we have a final design? I thought we had just sort of gone with the design because we just wanted a ballpark cost estimate. So I guess I'm sort of curious as to where we are in the process.
So the Greenberg and Associates would like to start the process on design development, but they have not.
They're 50%. I thought. Let me look. Sorry. I don't mean to
Yes, they
interrupt.
are. I think they're 50% on
They
this.
haven't done any construction drawings.
Right.
They have,
Find their bill.
from the last meeting that I had, that very short meeting I had with them, they said that they had not started any design development as of yet, and
32.
wanted the select board to decide on the various alternates before they started on the design development.
So I understand that they may be halfway through design development, which I'm pretty sure they are, right, Gabby?
I have 50% work
Yeah.
completed on
That's
design
what they
development.
built. You're right. But they have, we have, in my mind, we do not yet have sufficient information about the different options that they presented us with to have the final design. So maybe they're just postponing everything else until
Maybe, I don't know.
they can't go. I mean, they can't move until we are
That's-
clear about the options. And
So the
correct.
50% that they,
How do we get that clarity?
So that's, Richard, that's what I was describing in terms of asking, I've asked for a lot of different information on the different options and how one option impacts the other in terms of timing and cost. And Peter now has a spreadsheet to work, before we had a PDF of their spreadsheet. Now we have a spreadsheet to manipulate the way we want to make it clear, so that I'm hoping that we will have both a written description of things to review and a spreadsheet of costs once that we can look at in reference to the alternate descriptions. And I'm hoping that they will be here for our next select board meeting to be able to respond to any questions that we might have. And hopefully we'll get all this information to you before the 26th.
Yeah, just because what we do with the, I don't know
Should
if,
we have a special meeting for that discussion, or you want to do that in the agenda of the general select board meeting?
I think it could be a general select board meeting, but it should probably take the whole meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you, I don't know if you guys were involved in what happened with the covered bridge, but there were a number of select board meetings where the architects and designers came to present and the town had input, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
That's a really important step before we commit to what the design is and the cost.
So I'm envisioning, hoping to have 2 meetings that are primarily devoted to presenting all of these things to the town in the global context of what we've been looking at. And the first would be a preliminary meeting, would get some feedback from the architects, the contractor, and the town. And then the second meeting, we probably have some more feedback from town, and we probably have to redo a lot of stuff, but, rediscuss things, but that's okay. I think it's important to get it out there and for people to feel as involved as they wish to be.
And just the point you just made, Gabby, both GPI and Greenberg were reminded of that fact at the meeting a week and a half ago that.
Where'd you go, Peter?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I was just saying, in response to Gabby's comment, that GPI and Greenberg were both reminded of that fact, that there needs to be public meetings before the select board makes any final decisions.
Good.
Okay.
All right.
So, any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to clarify a couple things. Because conveniently, while I was looking through my little VLCT book, which was, thank you VLCT, in capital budgeting, it said we can adopt, amend, or repeal a capital budget after notice and public hearing if a town plan is in place. So I guess what I saw information was, what does that mean, notice and public hearing, and what do we need to do once we have agreed on a capital plan or budget? I don't know that information, so I guess I was seeking if somebody else had looked into it and knew.
Gabby, could you say that again? Did you say
Hang on one second, Richard. Yeah, I
Sorry.
was going to ask you to do it. You say it again.
Hey,
too.
Richard. So, in looking at the VLCT handbook, and looking in the capital budgeting section,
Yeah.
they say the legislative body may adopt, amend, or repeal a capital budget after notice and public hearing if a town plan is in place. So my question was, what does that mean, and what do we need to do?
If a
We
town
need to have
plan
a
is
public
in,
hearing.
That's what I think, but I mean, I'm wondering if Peter can call VLCT and get clarity, like, do we just need to, what's a proper notice, and what do we need to do to pass this capital program or capital budget once we have it? And so I just want to make sure that we knew about that, so we weren't, making a motion to have a capital budget and then
Yeah.
saying, oh shoot, we actually
Right,
don't.
thank you.
thank you, Gabby.
Sheila, this is Ian Keel, BCTV cameraman. Can I ask a question of Gabby as a proxy of the public, even though I'm a Brattleboro resident?
Yes, you may.
Okay, why paving doesn't come under capital program? I'm just curious on that.
I excluded it because it's in the highway budget,
Okay.
so
I'm a Brattleboro resident. I'm just curious as how my town might account for its paving as a capital plan, or
So
we
we-
have a lot of sidewalks. So I was just curious.
Yeah, we have a
I-
paving budget line for paving for every year, and Danny sort of figures out what he's going to do on an annual basis over time. And that figure is put into our annual budget that's passed at town meeting.
but we have a very small percentage of our town roads that are paved.
And no sidewalks.
Well,
In
we
your
only-
case,
we have one sidewalk, we have about 10
yeah,
feet
no,
of
no,
sidewalk.
no, but what I'm saying is that we account for the paving in the
In the
budget
budget.
because we can.
Yeah, it was curious for me
Yeah.
how Guilford approached
Mhm.
paving, whether it was through a capital planning or through another method, so.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me ask the question.
Yes.
And then I had one more question because I was looking at all of our funds and our balances. Algiers Waterline project construction. We have $194,000, and I just was seeking clarity as to what that was and whether that needs to be in our capital, because that seems like a good amount of money.
I don't have an answer at this time. I'll have to look into that and get back to you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other discussion about sources and uses of funds? Okay, so
Just for one point of clarity, so I'm just clarifying that there's 2 action points on this at the moment. That one, that I will check with the VLCT on capital budgeting and how that fits for the select board, and then I will check into the waterline fund.
Yeah, and specifically the notice and hearing, what we need to do to
what
make it.
page was that on in your book, Gabby, just to make life easier for Peter?
Yep, it's on page 154
Thank you.
of the handbook.
So did I capture that correctly?
Yes. We had, the next item on the agenda was a town health officer report, but when I was speaking to Richard Davis last week, he thought he might be able to resolve the issue without bringing it before the select board. He was going to let me know over the weekend if he needed to bring it, and he does not, so we will table or leave that, cancel that
Terrific.
off the, so we're a little bit ahead of our timing. 2018 audit.
Yep, so we received the letter from Mudgett, Janae, Crow, and Weisner a little earlier this year. Last year, we didn't get it till June. But I read through it, I've shared it with all of you guys. It's the same letter that they have sent out to us in the past, just stating the objectives of the audit and the responsibilities of each party, and what will be presented, and if there's any disputes, how to resolve those. As well as fees and costs, and
This is just to hire them for this year to do our audit,
that is
right?
correct. Yep. So this is their letter requesting,
It's our contract with them
That is
to hire them
correct.
for the next year.
Yep.
So, despite the fact that I requested everybody read through this because I thought it might prove enlightening, I did take some time off this weekend and I didn't read it. So, are the fees higher, the same? Do you remember?
They are right
15,000
here.
something. Yeah.
Oh, it's about the same.
So,
Yeah.
States, our fees are based on time required by individuals assigned to the engagement plus direct expenses. Individual hourly rates vary according to the degree of responsibility involved and skill required. Interim billings will be submitted as work progresses and as expenses are incurred, bills are due and rendered. Our fee for the audit services described in this letter will not exceed $14,750 unless the scope of the engagement is changed, the assistance with the town has agreed to furnish is not provided, or unexpected conditions are encountered, in which case we will discuss the situation with you before proceeding.
And last year they came in $4,200 under budget, so.
And what's our,
But wasn't that the
Was
same number as last
14,500.
year
Yeah.
that they proposed?
Yep,
Yes.
so I'm just
And
saying
it
it
came
was
in
the actual.
under that number.
Yep, that was a good thing.
Do
Okay,
we need to vote on this letter, or just,
I think we need a motion to.
Yes,
to
you did last year.
Work with, to conduct, have
I move that we work with,
Mudgett, Jennett, and Crow Wisner.
yeah,
Second,
Okay, all in favor, Richard,
yeah, aye.
Gabby,
hi.
Veranda,
Aye.
Gordon,
aye.
Sheila, aye. Thank you.
Sheila, would you kindly sign this then, and I will return it to
Yeah.
them.
The next item on the agenda is approving the minutes of the regular meeting of February 26, 2018.
I so move.
Second,
Second,
I had Gordon as the second.
All in favor, Richard,
aye.
Gabby,
Hi.
Veranda,
Aye.
Gordon,
aye.
Sheila, aye.
Could you kindly sign these, please?
Next item on the agenda is the highway update, which in short is same old stuff.
I spoke with Dan.
Snow in the forecast.
I spoke with Dan this morning, and They've been plowing, sanding, salting, fixing potholes, repairing equipment, and hoping winter will end soon.
Quote, unquote. Next item on the agenda is the conflict of interest policy review. We have now had time to review the proposed changes by VLCT. And does anybody have any comment on the proposed changes? And if no, I would seek,
Article 8 in there?
hold on.
Yes, that's recusal.
The recusal?
So there's some typographical error in the draft that I was.
Yeah, you're right. It's May. You're missing a lot.
Yeah.
And my other, there seems to sort of be a conflict in that section too, because we wrote it and we said you need to say a basis if you're going to recuse, and then the additional language added in says, but you don't have to say a basis if you recuse. So I would just suggest we pick one of them so that we don't have conflicting policies.
You say may but must not explain the
Yeah.
basis for that
But
decision.
go to the first sentence.
After taking the actions listed in an elected official, whether elected or appointed, should declare whether he or she will recuse him or herself and explain the basis for that decision. And then we say they may but must not explain the basis for that decision.
I think keep the first sentence
Yeah,
and get
and
rid of
get
it.
rid of the
The change.
change.
And take out the
at
parenthetical. I don't know why there's it starts with each.
That's how,
Yeah.
I just copied.
No,
their
I
edits.
just don't like it.
Yeah, that's fine. I agree. That's almost like recused,
So
but
a
then you don't
member
have to explain why.
Of an elected public body is independently elected and answers only to the voters. That's what you're saying. Okay, got it. So I've just corrected those things. Any other suggestions? Is there a motion to adopt the amended
I think that we adopt the conflict of interest policy
as amended
As amended.
as amended
and corrected?
and correct.
Thank you, Richard.
Second.
Second, Gabby. All in favor?
Roll call.
Sorry. Richard?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
Sheila, aye. Thank you.
And thanks for your diligence, everybody.
This is,
All right, I will get signatures for this at the next select board meeting, in a clean, unedited copy.
Perfect.
next item on the agenda, disposition of town assets policy review.
The one I read, or at least was in the Google Drive, and I don't know whether for some reason I was having issues with Google Drive, because I didn't get the
Me
red
too.
line either, but it didn't, it had the same language. It didn't look much different.
The only thing we did was.
It didn't take out the highway, for example.
Oh, let me just look at it again. I remember changing bids to offers or offers to bids or something like that.
And I removed personal, here, you can take a look at it. I
Yeah,
don't
and
need
it's something, I
to.
don't know if that,
I
if
didn't
it's just
see
It
my.
doesn't say highway now,
No,
Gabby.
I removed highway
Yeah.
as you requested. I mean, I from the
No.
notes,
It says no, but what it says here, the sale of municipal assets with an anticipated value of at least $1,000 or more must be advertised, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't exclude highway, which is what we had this discussion
Oh,
about
you're
last
talking
time.
that.
Oh,
Putting in a
excluding,
place
yes.
excluding.
oh, you wanted an explicit
Yes.
exclusion?
Yes.
Right, because otherwise it
Because
applies.
every time
Okay, so you're gonna do that.
Yep.
Then we'll sign that next week.
we
Well,
trade something.
And I guess,
in,
can we make it, we have to do this for every time we have something of $1,000 or more.
Why
It
not lift the
seems fairly
bar?
arduous.
Yeah.
I just like to think about that since we're gonna wait on it anyway.
The goal here is to, if we have an asset,
Right.
is just to give everyone a fair shot at it. Is that?
And to get a fair
it's-
price for it,
and-
right?
And to get a fair price for it.
It's been very sort of reaching out to somebody who might want something, and we
Right.
were looking at. The impetus here was the generator,
Right.
which through long and arduous, torturous process, we've
Probably.
discovered is no value to the town.
Metal.
Which we'll discuss
other than the
shortly.
metal. But are we going to discuss it? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So and I thought, you know, if there's something else that is of significant value, maybe somebody would get upset if we sold it to the town of
think it's a good
Halifax and
intention.
not Marlboro or something like that. So
I think it's a great intention. Could we not earmark something if it becomes available that we would put this asset out and advertise it in such a way so that there would be, you know, a fair and equitable way of doing it? Do we have to have a policy that stipulates one, an amount, and two, you know, every time?
Or can we just say it's the preferred? I mean, it's sort of a silly policy if you say it's the preferred policy, it's a preferred action, because I feel like, what if we sell a computer and we think it might be worth more than $1,000, but really, it's not. You know what I'm saying?
So
I don't
May I
know.
make a recommendation? Since you are already in the discussion of creating several other procedures for the town, maybe instead of having a policy, this could be a town procedure.
Yeah, like the town administrator or other municipal officer brings to the select board's attention something that they feel is appropriate to put out to bid for sale.
works for me.
I think so. I think we're kind of overcomplicating it. I think the intention is that we all want to be equitable to Guilford residents and assets, but I think we could do that on an individual basis.
Sheila, can I ask a question?
You may, Ian
This is
Keel from
from
BCT Brattleboro.
Third one.
When was the last time the town was in a position to dispose of an asset over $1,000?
Not in my recall.
So that's just the question one would ask, that if you
Right.
did have a policy,
Right.
would it be burdensome? Or it just simply would sit there dormant until a situation arose? So that's my simple question.
Simple question is a good one. I think that the select board could pull together a, you know, fair and equitable way to take that asset and put it out there in a appropriate way.
I think the fewer policies we have, the better off we are.
I just-
However, I do think that we need to be careful in how
Mindful.
we execute
Agreed.
something like getting rid of an asset that somebody may consider a great value that we don't.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Right.
so I think a procedure is a great idea.
What's the difference between a policy and a procedure?
So we don't have a policy for keeping track of grants. We have a procedure, you know. We have a whole lot of financial procedures that are not policies in place.
Okay.
So
So what action do we have to take about this?
we're gonna just turn it into a procedure.
So the action I'm stating, Richard, the action I'm putting down is that I will work on incorporating this with the further extended list of procedures that all of you have discussed desiring to be put in place.
Okay, thank you.
You're gonna talk to us about the generator now.
Well, there's the workers' comp.
Oh, sorry, workers' comp audit first.
Compliance.
So overall, there is not a lot of new information. Brenda, did you get a copy of this?
I-
Oh, that's a passive, sorry. You did get, so I passed out a copy of
That's it.
a VLCT recommended contract for services for any services provided that are valued at under $100,000. At the moment, our audit is not scheduled as of yet, and Penny is working on pulling together the remaining materials. So PACIF recommends this to all towns to amend to suit your needs, and this is what we should look at. They also have an additional one, as is, it's not referenced here, but for contracts that are greater than $100,000.
Is that the long form?
Yes, that
For
is
large
It
contracts?
is. Actually, it is more than double the length of
I
this.
can believe that.
And that one, you have to actually specifically request assistance from PACIF on that. They don't make that publicly available, as was discovered today. So this was just basically to update you that we did receive this from them. As Penny had noted, she had requested a copy of it. And so this is for all of you to review. And if you do review it and want to see some changes, we should have copies of this signed for 2 of the services that were provided to the town last fall, for the culvert work that was done over on Stage Road. And then we also need one for the paving work with Vermont Roadworks.
You're fading, Peter.
I'm sorry. It's been a long day.
What precipitated this contract? Because to me, a contractor providing a standard estimate, like a lot of things I see, they might not be in this form, but essentially include the same information. So can I ask what precipitated getting this?
It's, I don't know the full details of it. What I do know is this came about because we did not have a specific signed contract, as PACIF had recognized the contract with a couple of our providers and for the 1099s that Penny had to complete for the end of the year.
But the 1099s we're talking about are totally different than like the one you just mentioned, the ditch work that was done and the paving. I mean, those are huge. For the town, they're big. Those are large.
Particularly the paving one is very large.
They're not 1099s.
They are, because those 2 specific businesses are run as DBAs. They are not run
Oh,
as
they are.
corporations, which is why this
I'm
came
sorry,
up.
okay. I see. But because of the size of those,
Yes.
this probably came up. So this wasn't who's mowing the lawn at the cemetery.
Well, technically that,
I understand,
I mean,
but
if I'm
that's
mowing
not
the
what
lawn-
drove this, is what I'm saying.
yeah, no, it was not that drove this. No.
So
It
would
was-
this be applicable to a lawnmower?
They
Yeah.
feel
I
it
mean,
should be.
my God, I would.
But
walk
which is
away.
sort of what I'm trying to
What's
get
the
at.
balance?
Like a lot of
Who's
times,
gonna ever mow
a
lawns?
vendor will give you, the estimate that's basically, if you sign this, it's a contract,
Right,
and here's all the
with-
terms, and it's equivalent to this. So is it that we didn't have
That is
contracts?
correct. We did not.
So
All
that's
we
a
had-
different issue than, what do we have? Maybe.
We were given bids, but they were not contracts.
By
So-
those 2 firms.
That's correct.
So we didn't have something like estimate and say sign here and it's
That
complete
is
our
correct.
contract. So it seems to me that,
So for those 2 things, the select board approved those bids,
Right.
but not a contract.
so somebody didn't like sign the like they just handed in a bid, because a lot of times what I'll see, and here's our bid, and then sign the bottom and we have a contract.
Yes, that is.
Nobody signed.
No.
So I feel like with a little more oversight, we might be able to not have to use these all the time. I guess is what I'm coming. Like I think it's more that I think this is a good tool to have in our arsenal.
If we need to reflect.
But that what we really need to do is actually look at all their contracts and make sure we have the documentation.
So, if I, let me just ask you a question. I think for clarification, a Vermont Roadworks bid, which turns into a contract, should turn itself into a contract, would take the place of something like this, take the place of a contract for services.
I think so.
And somebody who comes and says, I'm gonna mow all your lawns, the library and the town office lawn for $12 an hour of mowing, sign here.
Again, you have to look at the contract, and it depends on what the contract, if you have an estimate, a lot of times it'll be sort of in a contract form. You just have to read it and see what it says. So I'll say yes, depending on what it says.
So is PACIF saying that, I mean, this is the minimum number of obligations, responsibilities and obligations shared by the contractor and the contractee. And if you don't have some exact or implied version of this, you're not in compliance?
As I understand it, you do not have to use this one. We do need to have some form of contract that delineates some of the things that Gabby noted and delineates some of the things that are in here, particularly for companies that are DBAs, that are not incorporated.
Okay. I think we should
So-
take this home and read it.
And I think it'd be helpful if you could go back to PACIF and say, what do we need when we hire somebody?
Okay.
What are they looking for to have compliance? Because if we had a checklist of 3 things or something, we could go look at what we have and do our little checklist. Like what,
Yep.
what's
And the range of types of contracts that we have. I mean, with an individual lawnmowers or the snow
Right.
blower or something like that is different from
Right.
paving,
And-
vastly different.
and the implications with now we need to check out, I mean, what's the difference with this doing business as and what is the, it seems like the onus is put on us to figure out the type of company or corporation that we're hiring. So can you seek clarification on what our responsibility is? Because it seems to be delineated by these companies that are doing business as.
And in terms of, I mean, the scope of the paving is huge, and the scope of, let's say, for instance, the mowing,
Right.
it's a different kind of scope. And also, our requirement, the whole reason we're including mowing is to make sure that the mowers have workers' compensation, insurance themselves. And the variety of jobs that they're going to be doing is pretty extensive. But I guess when they put in their RFP, they will be delineating what's required for completing some of the gnarlier tasks.
Okay, we have our
Good.
assignment.
So I put that action to point down.
Okay, thank you.
So what is our assignment with
So
this?
read this, see how you feel about it.
We
When
may
your eyes are
postpone
good.
this until after April 9th. I'm just saying, because this is,
Sure.
It's
I don't
not
want-
immersion.
it's not, yeah. Spare town generator.
So, as you all know, this has been ongoing for a while, and hopefully after tonight, we can put this to rest. Was it? I'm sorry, I've forgotten the date already.
Thursday. No, a week ago, Thursday.
It was,
A while ago.
yes, a while ago, sorry. I met with 3 technicians from Powers Generator who came out to take a look at this spare generator we have sitting around. And finally got some very clear answers on this specific unit. Amongst other things, I learned that this is a liquid propane generator, which is very rare these days because of the volatility of liquid propane. So this is liquid propane,
As
not...
opposed to natural gas?
No, so there's a difference between liquid propane that comes in a liquid form similar to what you pump gas out of the gas pump into your car versus the liquid propane that you have in a compressed bottle that you use on your barbecue or for
Correct.
your stove at home or whatever it may be. So because of the volatility of liquid propane and the technical expertise that's needed to maintain these systems, they are virtually not used any longer. So that's one thing. The unit could be converted to standard propane. However, and that would need to happen, they won't mess around, Powers won't mess around with liquid propane. They would convert it to regular propane if you desired. That would need to happen before they can do any testing to see if the machine even works. We would have to request a formal quote from them to do that. The technician I spoke with, based on his almost 15 years of experience, guessed that would probably be between $3,000 and $4,000 in 4 to 5 days of work at their facility. He also said that this specific make of generator has a long-standing history of being very problematic and difficult to work with.
Long-standing history of what?
Being problematic and difficult to work with. So he also said that this specific generator manufacturer will only allow OEM parts to be used on it, and so those parts are very expensive. He said it's one of the most expensive generators to repair. And the 2 computer modules on the generator, he said, are the 2 most common failures he sees on this specific manufacturer. So his personal recommendation, it's not official, but his personal recommendation to the select board was to give it away. And he said, you'll be hard pressed to find someone who wants to take it.
Scrap it.
So.
I think we would feel guilty giving it away to somebody.
Because,
we should
you know,
scrap it.
Yeah.
they said, he told me that just to get it running, or to the point where they could test it, is gonna cost a third of the cost of a brand new generator. The other thing is, he said, because it's been sitting out in the open for 3 years, he said there's most likely mice living in it and
I
have
agree.
destroyed the wires on the inside. And
So
he
should
said-
we put this to a close and just say that we
Yes.
don't want to move
Bury the
forward
deal.
with it?
So,
So.
I know
I'll make a
Danny
motion.
has a metal pile over at the town garage. You might want to put it
We
in.
might have a metal.
Actually, it's right there.
soon.
It just needs to move 50 feet from where it's sitting.
Dan would like to have it moved, because it is inconvenient where it's currently located. Were you gonna say something?
Does it
Yeah,
have
no,
to
I was-
follow the procedure for disposal of town assets?
No, I'm going to make a motion that we dispose of the generator, saying that it seems to be, after much
Due diligence.
more than due diligence, valueless.
Yeah.
Second.
Thank you, Richard. Richard, I'm all in favor. Richard?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
Miranda? Gordon?
Aye.
Sheila? Aye.
And Chair, this is Ian Keel again. Is there a short recap of how you ended up with the thing in the first place?
We're not gonna go through that.
Oh, okay.
It was free.
It was given to us.
So you're disposing of an asset that cost the town nothing?
Nothing, right.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification.
I just, people watching might want to know.
Thank you.
Curious minds. So Gabby, are you prepared to do warrants
Make a
for us?
motion to pay the following payroll and warrants for the week ending March 4th, 2018 in the amount of $7,121.26. Payroll for the week ending March 11th, 2018 in the amount of $6,440.55. Expense warrant 1817 in the amount of $33,690.99. Expense warrant 17CC in the amount of $510. And expense warrant 17FW in the amount of $50.50 for a grand total of payroll and warrants $47,813.30, with the biggest expenditures being our fourth quarterly property casualty and workers' comp insurance. That was about $14,000. There were about $3,000 in motor repairs, and those were the big ones.
Second.
Gordon, thank you. And I just want to note that the highway equipment repairs are still within budget for this year, so I think we're in a good position. I thought we might be going over with some of those, but we're still within budget.
So now we have to poll people about voting on
I'm
this.
going to do a roll call
great.
vote.
I think we need a
Terrific.
second though.
Gordon seconded.
Oh, you're quick.
Richard, all in favor? Richard? Aye. Gabby?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
You hold your eye every time you say that.
I'm afraid it might fall off.
Gordon? Aye.
Aye.
Sheila? Aye. I'm sorry, I said Gordon? Aye.
That's okay.
Whatever. Okay, next item on the agenda, do I hear a motion to enter into executive session per 1 VSA section 313A1 to discuss personnel matters? Go ahead, Richard.
So moved.
Second.
Gabby seconded. All in favor? Richard?
Aye.
Gabby?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
I'm not answering for you this time. Sheila? Aye. So we are entering into executive session at 8:09 PM. We are going to, we're exiting executive session at 8:32 PM. And the action that the select board is taking is the select board has committed to providing feedback to Peter's performance review by the next select board meeting. I could stick that wording in there if you would like.
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay, I will
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
take roll call for the motion to adjourn. Richard,
Aye.
Gabby,
Aye.
Miranda,
Aye.
Gordon,
Aye.
Sheila, aye. Meeting adjourned at 8:32 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Bye, Richard.
Send my love to
Thank
your
you.
family.
I will. Thank you.